Hello Daz enthusiasts, this is Not From This World and welcome to my tutorial series. Now today we're going to move on and go a little bit more in detail with Hexagon, and I want to show you kind of the next set of steps that we can use Hexagon for to make better poses and morphs for our clothing. Now today I thought it would be interesting to talk a little bit about major movements in clothing. And so I've had a few requests from my patrons to talk about these poses where a character is undressing. So this pose set has various stages of undressed people, and I chose one and kind of manipulated it just a little bit. And I want to show you how we can actually create a nice morph to the clothing where it looks like she's pulling her bottoms down. So pretty cool. Normally we would probably want to do this in a program like Blender, but forget Blender. It's too complicated at times. Let's use Hexagon. So what I'm going to do is move my Milica girl into Hexagon, and we are going to set up a set of morphs that are going to put her into a pose where she is undressing. Now, if you haven't checked out my first tutorial about Hexagon, I actually have two. You might want to go back and watch those first and then come to this one, because I am going to assume that you know the basics of Hexagon now, or at least the parts of Hexagon that I mentioned in previous videos. So if you haven't seen that video, you might want to check it out. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is select Milica, and we're going to move her into Hexagon. Just go to File, Send to Hexagon. We're going to wait a minute for her to load up. Hexagon is a pretty basic program, but man, it really works great for clothes morphs. All right, we're going to get rid of that because we don't need it. And by doing this, we're going to learn a few new functions for Hexagon. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to resize her shorts because they are around her waist and we need them about as wide as her hips, down by her thumbs. So in order to do this, we're going to kind of zoom in. I am going to select the edge box, and I'm just going to select a few edges right on the edge of her waist, and I'm going to go into this little tab here and select loop. Now when I select loop, you'll notice that we get this blue circle that's encircling her entire waist. That is going to move everything. We also want to adjust the weight node. So I'm going to go up here to the radius, and we're going to shrink this down to about her thumbs. I don't want the entire pair of shorts to be expanded, just kind of the top half. Then I can go into this manipulator tool, select it. We're going to get this box, and I'm going to take the red part of the box and see I can expand the waist of the shorts. Now I don't want to do it too much, but I just want to get it about the width of her hips. We can also shrink the weight node down a little bit and manipulate it that way as well. So if I want to kind of bring this in, then I can shrink it up and expand just the waist out a little bit. Remember, if we don't like what we are doing, we can always hit Control Z, and that will bring us back. All right, let's expand this and get it the way that we like it. So I think about right there. Then I'm going to drop this weight node down, and then we're going to expand just the waistband. Okay, cool. Now, once I have that, I'm going to go back to my first little box that's the object box. We're going to select that. And now I can hit the manipulator arrow. And now the whole thing is selected, so I can drop this down. I can actually drop the entire pair of shorts down. And if I rotate it, I can actually see what I'm doing and pull it towards the front. Now, her legs, if you look, her legs are bent. So I'm going to have to tilt the entire pair of shorts. And to do that, I'm just going to hit my rotation arrow. And it looks like I'm going to use my red plane. And I'm just going to tilt this up a little bit until I get approximately the correct angle. Now, again, do not worry about poke through. We're going to take care of poke through here in a few minutes. Looks like I may need to just expand the shorts a little bit. So I can go back in, select them all, and if I want to, I can expand the entire pair of shorts by hitting this little yellow box. And see, it's just expanding everything. So that's going to take a little bit away from the worry of poke through. I don't want to make it too big because then it just won't look natural. But, you know, one of the things about Daz Studio that I've mentioned before is that it's all about perception, right? So even if these shorts are expanded and too big, they're still going to look okay from the perspective of our render. All right, so I've got the waistband close to her thumbs, but I don't think they're quite big enough. So I'm going to go back to my edge tool. I'm going to select the edge again and then hit loop. And we're going to go back to our scale and we're just going to expand this out a little bit more. I think I need to make my weight node a little bit heavier. And let's expand this out towards her thumbs. Okay, we're getting there. So I think we need to tilt a little bit more. So I'm going to grab the tilt option. I'm going to tilt these shorts just a little bit more. That looks pretty good. Her left hand is pretty good. It looks like it's grabbing it. We can fix this finger back in Daz Studio. This finger's a little bit too close. Don't worry about that. We're focusing just on our shorts. Maybe make it just a hair wider. All I need to do is zoom in, select a couple of those, and hit loop again. And see the waist is just a little bit narrower than where her thumb is, so we can just expand this just a little bit more. The key to all of this, of course, is patience. More you work on it, the better it looks. Okay, so right now that doesn't look too bad. I'm going to go to my face. I'm going to go from edge to the face block. And now I can start manipulating this huge poke through that we have. So we can fix this. And I'm just going to hit my arrow. And then I'm going to hit where my poke through is. I'm going to narrow this down. I might adjust this a little bit. And then we're just going to pull this out. Now remember, it may do us good to be in selection mode for this because it aligns our arrows with the geometry. So I'm just going to start using smaller adjustments. I'm going to get this weight node down. Let's just kind of pull on this just a little bit in different areas. I'm double clicking just to make sure it's where I want it. But you can see I'm really just doing small adjustments. We don't want to do large adjustments because then you'll get a lump and that'll look weird on her skin, having a big lump of cloth that shouldn't be there. So that's why I'm just doing little adjustments till I get that poke through out. There's a little poke through right there. We can scale this up or down. I've noticed that small little adjustments are the best. So now let's do the other thigh here. We're just going to pull a little bit and get these adjustments. Maybe just a little bigger here to start with. Let's put it right smack in the middle. There we go. put another one right there. Just a small adjustment. Small adjustments. All right, let's spin her around. Her butt probably needs some work. So let's get the poke through here adjusted. Now, if you're only doing like a frontal view, you may not care about this. But if you want to use this morph repeatedly, you want to take the time to adjust this. Then you have a morph that you can save and keep for a variety of different scenes if you're using this pose. All right, almost there. You can also just kind of expand this out just a little bit. Not bad. Looks pretty good. So now we can see we've got a pretty good representation. Okay, we got a little bit of poke through right here. One of the things that you can do to double check for poke through before you put it into Daz Studio is just select out of what you're working on. So like I'm in the pants, I'm going to go to the top and see we can see this poke through. So I know now to go back and adjust for this. So I'm going to go back to my faces. I'm just going to select this area, go back to selection mode, and we're just going to pull this out just a tad. Same with right here. Okay. Now we can double check. Looks good. There, it looks like there's a little poke through right here. In fact, I'm going to select this right here, and I'm going to pull it out just a hair, because that could have been an issue. All right, let's twirl it around one more time. This looks pretty good. All right, so once I'm happy with that, we're going to put it back into Daz Studio. So I'll go to File, Send back to Daz. My Daz is blinking, so I know that it's ready. We'll get the tab up here. I'm going to select the Hexagon morph. Let's name this. Double click on it. Let's name it Short Morph 1. Okay, so make sure that you have the reverse deformations on yes. So I'm going to right click that, hit yes, and then hit accept. All right, now I click out of that. I had a successful morph created. Now we're going to find the shorts. So now I've selected the shorts. I've got this morph, the hexagon bridge morph, and I have the short morph right here. I've already created another morph, for practice before I made this tutorial. And so this is the one that I just created. I named it Short Morph 1. So now if I drop this down, we have the morph. Looks pretty good. Now I can do some fine tuning. So I can take her finger, for example, and now I can adjust this finger so it looks like she is grabbing her shorts rather than her finger poking through her shorts. So we can just pose this finger. I think something like this. All right, let's look at the other hand. And same kind of deal. We can just adjust this left hand. Okay, so now we have the shorts morphed, and I think that looks pretty good. There is a little flare out here that we could change. And if we want to change this, what's really cool is if we go back into Hexagon, we can create a second morph for this pose. I need to go back into Hexagon. As I go back into Hexagon, what's kind of interesting is I'll show you a new little trick here, but I can select one polygon, and then I can hold down my shift key and go to a second polygon, select it, and then I can go to this between button and just hit it, and you can see that it linked my two polygons. So now I kind of have a string of polygons. Rather than having to select each one individually, it kind of did it on its own. Now I can adjust, hopefully, this bulge, this little flare. I'm just going to kind of bring this down. You can see up, we get some poke through there, so I'm going to stop right there. Then maybe come down here, hit shift, link these by hitting between, and I can do the same thing. I can just kind of push it down. All right, until we get that poke through. I've got this poke through here, but I can fix that by hitting the box, just grabbing that and pulling it out just a hair. All right, let's see what this did. We still kind of have a little bit of a flare, but I think that's better than it was. I'll keep it in the face mode, and I'll select a polygon here, hit shift, polygon there, hit the between button. Now if I zoom out, I can probably dip this just a little bit more. Well, now the whole point of showing you the correction to this flare was just to show you that when we bring this back into Daz, we're going to create a second morph. So if I go to File, Send to Daz Studio, go back to my Daz, see now we have created a new morph. So now we can name this morph. I'm just going to double click it. Let's name it Short Flare Off. Something like that. I don't know. Doesn't matter what you name it. Name it whatever you want. Make sure that that reverse deformations is selected to yes. We hit accept. We created the morph successfully, so we'll hit OK. I'll scroll down to our pants, and now we have this other morph, which is really cool. So now I can just take it and see we can adjust this down. It didn't actually change it a whole lot, but you can see it did change it a little bit. All right, I think that actually looks better. That looks good. So now we're going to do one more change, and that is with the top. What I want to do with the top is we're going to take the strap and we're going to drop it below her shoulder so it's kind of dangling right here. I've done this similarly in Mesh Grabber, but I think this is actually a little bit easier. Now, in order to do this, we're going to select our character like we always do, but I am going to go back to Hexagon and we're going to X out of it. So I just don't ever save anything. I just hit no. We're going to X out of Hexagon, and then we're going to bring Milica back into Hexagon. So she's selected. We're going to go to File, Send to Hexagon one more time. We're going to open her up, and then we're going to change her top. All right, I hit OK. Now what's really cool is we are just creating a brand new morph with a different object. So I'm going to select the tank top, come up here, select soft selection as always, and then we're going to play with this top. So I'm going to kind of zoom in and rotate, because my goal is to take this strap and just push it off of her shoulder, maybe put it right about here. Now to do that, we're going to just zoom in. I'm going to use the between again. So I'm going to select kind of down here, and it's hard to see. So I can come down to these little globes and I can hit various options, kind of like Daz Studio, where you can select different views of your geometry. So if I do this, you can see the different versions of geometry. I don't really mess with this a whole lot, but if you want to, I guess you can kind of get different views of like shaders, shadows, that kind of thing. If you find that useful, that's cool. I think what I'll do is just select her top, and I want to select with the face just bottom 3 pieces of geometry for her strap there. Then I'm going to Alt left click, come around to the back, hold shift, and then select the bottom 3 there and kind of rotate around. So now I have 6 polygons selected, and I can go to this between, select the between, and now the entire strap is selected, and I can dial down my weight node. So I'm going to dial down the weight node probably about there. So I want a little bit of the cup of the top selected and maybe a little bit of the back. Now what I can do is just drag the whole thing. See, if I take this, I can drag this and change it. So I'm going to drag it a little bit, maybe raise it up, and then go to rotate. And we're going to rotate this, adjusting it as we go. So I'm going to just kind of keep pulling this down until it's in a spot that I like. Go back to rotation. Let's rotate it. You can see we're going to have poke through like normal. That is fine. We'll fix that as we go. Let's look at what the back looks like. So we have a little bit of poke through right there. We can adjust that. All right, so just get it in the general spot that you like. Looks like we need to go down a little bit. I'm more interested in getting it on her arm, and then we'll adjust things after it's in her arm. What we don't want is like a big gap. See that gap? Now, to get rid of the gap, there is a couple of things that we can do. First of all, I think I'm going to jump right here and just adjust this. All right, so I adjusted around her bra cup. And I can come in here and we can select these tabs, spin around, select perhaps right in here, hit shift before you choose it, do that, and then I can go to my scaling and we can rescale this so we can kind of shrink it down if we need to, drop it down. So I just hit the between again and we're gonna adjust this. What's cool is with this between I can go to the scale and we can probably shrink this down so it's up against, yeah, look at that, up against her arm. So I'm just adjusting this ever so slowly until I get it how I want it. I'm doing that by selecting, hitting shift, then selecting multiple polygons. The key is hitting shift, just the strap. So I'm gonna hit that. And then I'm gonna come over here. Let's hold shift. We're gonna attach that, go to between, and see now I can adjust this just a little bit to get it above her shoulder. Select a few more, hit shift. Now I can drop that down just a little bit. So it just depends on, like I said, her pose. So something like that, perhaps straighten this out. That'll look better if it's straighter. It's okay if it's curved a little bit, but we want it kind of straight. All right, so after we have this in the position that we like, we're just gonna do the same thing and send it to Daz Studio. Once it's in Daz, we'll name it. Now this will be the top, so we can name it whatever we want. Don't forget to say yes to the reverse deformations. And now we have this morph. So I'm gonna go to my top and I have different morphs. This is the one that I just created. All right. I created another one that I just named strap, and this is kind of adjusting the left side. I did that a little bit because I noticed that when I render this left strap, I think it was when I simulated it, it got twisted, which is weird. So there is a spot that looks like it's missing. It's actually not poke through, but when I render, you'll see it. It looks like it's missing right here by her shoulder, and that's just because it's twisted and very thin. So we can change that a little bit just to make it thicker. I tried to make it thicker, and then I have an original morph that I like a little bit better than the one I just created, but you can see it kind of drops down lower on her arm. And so, you know, you just have to play with this. Hopefully this helps you out. I think this is pretty cool that now we can take clothes and change where they are on the body without using Blender. I tell you, I struggle with Blender, and Hexagon is so much easier than Blender. It has its limitations, of course, but I just think it's better. So once we have this, I'm going to save it, and let's do a render and see what she looks like. Okay, you can see that she's done, and like I was saying, this is actually not poke through, but it sure looks like it is. You can't see that strap very well. So what I'll end up doing is I'll end up going into GIMP and just thickening that line a little bit so that it makes it look like her strap is more present. But I kind of like how this looks. It does look like she's either getting dressed or undressing, however you want to interpret it. But it's perfect. Looks good. I think for my thumbnail, I'll probably, hopefully not get in trouble with YouTube, but hey, there's nothing wrong with this picture. It's just a little sultry, but I think I'll position her like this. We'll do another render and then make a thumbnail. I might have to go in again, like I said, and just edit, do a little bit of post work on that strap because it's so thin. It looks like she is having some poke through there, but she's not. Maybe even zoom in a little bit for the thumbnail. All right, well, I hope that this tutorial is helping you out. The thing with Hexagon is you just have to kind of play around with it, and remember, little adjustments. That's all you really want to do. Don't try and do a big adjustment. Just do those little adjustments. And it may take a few minutes, but you're going to get a nice morph like what we have here. I'm very happy with this original shoulder. It just looks so good coming down. And the end result pleased me a lot. All right. So please comment. Give me tips that you'd like to see. I'm going to make another clothing tutorial for the next video, so stay tuned. You'll have a Hexagon video number 3 coming out next time. And in the meantime, happy rendering. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and give me those comments. All right, take care, and I will see you next time.